From the beginning, the divine feminine has always been. She is the great mother, the origin from which all life stems. All praise the Most High. The royal is a meter. The royal is a meter. The royal is a meter. Tall panel podcast. The royal is a meter. The royal is a meter. The royal is a meter. Tall panel podcast. Two sisters doing the work of the Most High. On a mission to be the voices of the unheard. We doing a new thing in the earth, as it was written in Jeremiah 31:22. We were called from our mother's wombs. Now introducing to you.
Thank you. Okay, so we are on with the Mighty Hebrew. And how would you like for us to address you? Because I always call you the Mighty Hebrew or Prince, but how would you like to be addressed?
Whatever feels comfortable, French, or French Charlandine or Nasik Charlandine, Mighty Hebrew. It's fine. Mighty Hebrew, yeah. Mighty Hebrew is still got a year and a half left before he retire at 50.
Okay. Wow. Well, look, I know you are a very busy man and it is late. So even though we could go all night, we ain't gonna try to keep you here all night, but just want to kind of pick around in your brain a little bit, see if we can glean from your knowledge, the wisdom and the experience you've had in this Israelite walk. I know you're a man who has many hats, artist, teacher, lecturer, so many things. So why don't you kind of, first and foremost, I would like to ask you about the truth, this Israelite walk. How or when, did you come into this truth?
Absolutely. First and foremost, I give all praise and honor to Yahweh, the supreme, intelligent, powerful one of our forefathers up there in East God and Yah and Food. It was strong for righteousness' sake. I say into the family, Shalom Aleichem. It's definitely an honor and a privilege to be here to serve Israel. Oh man. My walk started as a young son. I've been in this culture now since the beginning of 1994. It's 2024 now, but I've always had a form of connection with the Israelites since a young son. My great grandmother, she was Hebrew Pentecostal. So raising up in that atmosphere, she took me to Shabbat services when they would have their feast up on 32nd and Montgomery in North Philadelphia. They would have like the Feast of Tabernacles and with Pentecost, different things like that. So for years, I've always knew that we were the children of Israel. I just didn't have the detail. One of my uncles, my great uncle, which is my grandmother's brother, he's the founder of jazz bagpipe playing, the famous jazz bagpiper named Rufus Harley. And he knew that he was an Israelite and he represented the Israelite culture since the 1950s, the late 1950s. So there was always like in the midst of my family that we knew we was Israel. We just didn't have the fullness of it, so to say. So how I got involved, I used to mess with this Rastafarian. I might have been like 14 at the time. She was around 17. And she used to always tell me that we were the tribe of Judah, we were the Israelites. And I would say to her, yeah, I heard that before, but it really wasn't like registering. Like I heard of it, but I kept moving forward. So one day I went to go get a pair of sneakers downtown, 15th and Market. And I seen these guys on the street corner. We all, ran into them, and this at the time before it was ISUBK, it was UPK, Universal Practical Knowledge. So I see them on the street corner, and the brother was like, he pointed at me and he said, so you one of them niggas that believe that Adam and Eve ate an apple. So in my ignorance, I was like, yeah, they eat an apple. And he was like, listen, If you can show me where they ate an apple at, then don't come back to us.
No,
But if
niggas
you show,
that believe that Adam and Eve ate an apple.
yeah, if you can't show us, then you gotta come visit the school up on Old Guys Avenue. So I said, all right, okay. So I went home, I go get my Bible. So I'm looking all throughout the first pages of Genesis, this apple, and I don't find it, but I find the word fruit. So me and my deceptive mind, I go back to following Friday. And I said, I got you, brother. I knew they ate an apple. And I threw the verse there where it said fruit. It didn't say apple, and I know it didn't say apple. And the brother looked at me and he just laughed and he said, I see you at the school. So I went up to their school. You know, I had to keep my word. I went up to the school. It was all right. I went there. And then the following Friday, I went back to that spot, and there was this brother out there. His name is Kayambe Yisrael. He had this big afro, but it was something different about him. He wasn't them, like he wasn't UPK. He was an Israelite, but he was different. So he see that I'm looking at him. So he come to me, Shalom, Shalom, Haki. So I'm like, Shalom. And we talking. And he was letting me know that his Abba, his father, was a teacher. And they had a school up 32nd and Euclid in North Philly. So he asked me, did I want to come? I said, yeah. Now, this was a tourist center community. So I said, okay. So I wound up going up there and I took a liking to it. So now I'm going weekly Shabbat services, weekly building.
Hold on, let
From
me
there,
ask you. You said it was the UPK, they were Torah only at one time?
no.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying I went to UPK one time. That Friday, I went back with, that verse. And even though I know it didn't say apple, I tried to throw the word fruit there as it said apple. And the brother from UPK laughed at me and said, well, I
Mm,
see. So
okay.
that's for Sabbath service. I went to their class. And then the following week, which was that following Friday, I went back to that street corner where they was at on 15th and Market. There was another brother there by the name of Tayambi Yidrael. He wasn't a part of UBK. He was a part of a tourist center school, which later became known as Temple Kifrayim. He came up to me because he seen that I was looking at him because he had this real big afro and he was with his little brother and he had a big afro too. And I just kept looking. And he gave me his number and stuff, and I called him. So he wound up picking me up, and he took me to his father, his aunt, and their school was on 32nd. Well, no, at this time the school was up on 17th and Diamond, but the hoagie store, the cheesesteak store they had was up 32nd in Euclid, Montgomery area. So I wound up visiting his Abba, his father, and he invited me to the Sabbath services. So I wound up going, I kept going, I took a liking to it. And ever since I've been on this path. But but originally I started out with them, um, building with them for years, for many years. Then I wind up becoming a contributing columnist for 5 years for a newspaper known as Jerusalem Chronicle newspaper, ran by Elder Zaquena Don Yehoshaphat ben Yisrael out in Memphis, Tennessee. And my writing started to shoot globally around the world. So you had the community in Dimona, Israel, Northeastern Africa, an organization known as Youth on the Move. So they start finding my writings interesting. So there was a man by the name of Nasi Eliashub ben Yehuda. He contacted me His name at the time was Sar Eliashu before he became a Nasi. So he asked me, did I want to enroll in the school of the prophets? So I'm letting him know, like, how I'm going to do that. Y'all in Israel and I'm over, in the United States. He said, you can do it by mail. So I enrolled in the school of prophets. I wanted to get my master's degree in African Middle Eastern Studies. I got my master's degree in 2004. And then I wound up getting my degree in 2014 in divine Hebraic fundamentalism by the way of the late Nasik Ram in Israel. He just died a couple of weeks ago. So through all that, to say all that, I wound up becoming a top historian at Temple Kifraim. So I started doing lectures all over the country, whatever state you can think of. I've been there, different schools, whether Messianic, Torah only. I've congregated in many congregations where I would lecture. And as I'm developing in the knowledge of Israel, I start developing a system known as Hebrew Israelite Sovereign National. And I start looking at the Torah more as a nationalistic constitutional document, and Israel being the body politic. And then as I started to dive deeper into the concrete understanding of Hebraic thought from an Eastern perspective, I started to develop a system known as Hebrew cosmogenesis, which is the
Um,
cosmological. Yes.
I'm sorry, let me ask you real quick. What is when you say sovereign, what is that for those who may not understand that?
I started the sovereignty, and I don't want people to get it confused. What we know as the sovereign citizen movement, none of that, or UCC, none of that. When the Most High gave us law, statutes, and commandments, it was to separate us from the body politic of ancient Kemet 1446 BCE. Remember, we was under the regime of ancient Kemet or Egypt. So when we got the Torah, it was the constitutional breastplate to create a righteous monarch system. So when I started to view the Torah in my studies, that's exactly how I started to look at the document. I started to look at it as a constitution, not a religious document. And nationalism naturally is nationalistically the things of Israel, our own demarcation stations, our land, our own culture, our own language, food habits, art, sciences, et cetera, et cetera. This is all constituted in Hebrew Israelite sovereign nationalism. And as I continued to dive deeper into the Hebrew language, I started to understand more that there was many misinterpretations and mistranslations because the European, you know, small hats, they would translate in the Hebrew from a Greco-Hellenistic abstract thought versus the Eastern Hebraic concrete thought. So once I started to get into the Sinaitic pictorial Hebrew and also the Paleo Hebrew, I started to see a total difference when it came to translating the Hebrew text. And I developed out of that Hebrew cosmogenesis, which was a cosmological understanding of our culture, taking us back 311 trillion, 40 billion years. Another story, another topic. Then, as I'm developing, now I'm saying we have an anthropological understanding of our culture. And I developed Hebrew anthropogenesis. So now, as I'm developing this, it became a school of thought to the point, and I had so many students, I had to create a whole school of thought. And that's when the Mighty Hebrew University became developed, which became accredited in 2021. It became an accredited university. So, over the years, like I was saying, I was teaching all over the country. Then I started to travel around the world. So as I'm developing this system, I'm like, yo, I can't be in the United States. And I'm the founder of Hebrew Israelite Sovereign Nationalism and saying we a nation. I say I gotta leave the confines of America. So I was talking to one of my Nashim, one of my wives. So they was like, look, we should just, go to Africa. So as I'm looking at this whole 2019 thing, and the alignment of 1619, 2019, I'm like, all right, the George Floyd situation, the COVID. I said, all right, we can leave. Now I already have connection in Demona. So at first I was like, look, I'm in Ghana where I temporarily stay and then move to Israel. So the late Prince Asiel being Israel, one of the three founders of the community that I'm a part of in Demona, Israel, who appointed me a prince, he said, you should go to Tanzania. So I'm like, why should I go to Tanzania? He was like, because in 1974, he was one of the, main ingredients of the Six Pan African Conference there. And I should go there and set up a community, a jurisdiction in Tanzania. So I wound up coming to Tanzania and I've been here ever since. And I've been traveling to different countries in Africa doing ground footwork research on the scattered tribes of Israel throughout Africa. And I made tremendous steps in my research. And I'm here, and I've been here so far, 3 years so far.
Hold
I
on
have
one
a
second.
question.
I was just going to say you had a question.
Yeah, I have a question. Yeah. Shalom, Ak. I wasn't able to start off with you from the beginning of the video. It's a great honor and a privilege to have you on here. And thank you for your time and your presence. And we love you for this. And we look up to you highly. And we really appreciate all the work that you've done into our community and all the energy you've poured into our people. It's a lot of positive, and we thank you for that. My name is Yasharahla. I'm based out of Cleveland, Ohio. Didn't get a chance to introduce myself, and thank everyone out there and live as well. Thank you for your time and tuning in and learning and listening to us. We want to ask, is it Torah only based, and why Torah only?
That's a good question. Quiet as it's kept, as we all descendants of slaves that find out who we are in most cases, when we come into Israel, we come under the Messianic persuasion, following, the Old Testament and the New Testament. But as I start developing in my research and studying the Hebrew, I found from my perspective contradictions. You know what I'm saying? Like, for instance, I give you an example. When you go into Yeshayahu or Isaiah, chapter 7:14, we're under the impression that it's talking about a futuristic prophecy of this virgin giving birth. But then when I read it in the Hebrew text, it's actually written in the past tense. And then the word for virgin is matulah. That word in Ivrit, it's not there. The word alma is there. When it's read in its proper context, verse 1 gives you the answer. It says, in the days, or in those days during the time of King Ahab, that he was given this prognostication that within 65 years, the Assyrians would come in and attack and destroy the northern kingdom of Israel, or put them under captivity. And the southern kingdom, they will be spared. When you look at chapter 7, 8, and 9, they all go together in this historical context. Another problem I was having is that chapter 7 and chapter 9 are being considered as the same child. I totally disagree. When you look at Isaiah or Yeshayahu, some people pronounce it Yeshaya, chapter 9, verse 6, that child we are considering over here as 12% of Israelites as King Hezekiah. And when things are read properly, all this stuff is written in the past tense. You can't take a futuristic prophecy and that's in the past tense and make it a futuristic prophecy. That's what I meant to say. You can't take something in the past tense and make it a futuristic prognostication. That is against the whole Hebrew grammar structure.
A question really quick before you go too far. I speak and I study ancient Paleo Phoenician Hebrew, and the word Alma means mother. So What does that mean in the dialect that you speak?
No, not Alma. Alma. That's two different words.
Okay. Okay. And
Yeah,
how do
Alma.
what do
You,
oh
the word for
so,
is AHMAH. That's what you're talking about. The word I'm talking about is ALMA. So that's two different words. Um, the word that you see in that verse means young woman. The young woman is with child, and you will find that young woman in the 8th chapter, verse 3, which in fact was Isaiah's wife, which was the prophetess that he went in, and she conceived, and his name became known as Hasbaz Mahar Hasbaz. And that is the same child with the significant name, which we know, oh, Emmanuel. It was like a
mhm,
slogan, just like on the Black Power movement. You would hear
mhm,
people say black. So that was basically the sign for the Southern Kingdom. But
mhm,
there's so much more. You know what I mean? When we understand, from a geopolitical perspective, um, the Moshiach, only men anointed, and people are getting Moshiach confused with Moshiach.
mhm,
Moshiach means savior, whereas the Moshiach means anointed. So all the kings of Israel were anointed. And what has happened in the Israelite community, that through studying it from a social anthropological perspective, we
mhm,
have taken religious overtones from Christianity and we placed it in Israelite thought.
mhm,
So when I start doing a lot of the ground footwork research, the original Hebrews, they didn't acknowledge the concepts that we see today, like concepts of heaven and hell and different things of that nature that we've got from Greco-Roman Hellenism. So it became not too difficult for me because I already questioned certain things. But it took probably like a good 5 months to exit from that concept of believing that JC was the Messiah. But all the Israelite kings were the Moshiach, or properly Mushakim. They were all anointed. And there was no spooky connotation. The high priest, the Levitical high priest, would anoint the king. The Levitical high priest would be your ecclesiastical jurisdiction. And then your national jurisdiction would be divinic. So this is another reason why I developed Hebrew Israelite sovereign nationalism, to challenge the religious mind state within the Israelite nation. Most Israelites on social media are very religious versus nationalistic. So that was one of the reasons why also I developed Hebrew Israelite sovereign nationalism.
Okay,
mhm.
so based on Torah living, um, in the present time, we never really hear too often of people doing animal sacrifice and these things. So if you're Torah based only, why are not people following it to the down to the letter when it comes to like the sacrifice and everything?
That's definitely a good question. I'm gonna give you two interpretations. Well, all throughout the scripture, if you read and inside the Torah, it tell you that we only can sacrifice in our land. That's number one. Number two, when you go into Vayikra or Leviticus chapter 1, verse 18, it uses a Hebrew word ki that's not translated in the King James Version. It's letting you know if, meaning we have a choice of sacrifice. Sacrifice was framed within the universal principles in Torah. When you go to Micah chapter 6, verse 1 to 8, it speaks about how when we come into this anointed consciousness, there will be no need for sacrificing anymore. It will be our righteousness. If you notice, all ancient societies, they had a form of sacrifice when they were in that archaic primal state. Remember, Abraham, he was coming from out of a world of sacrifice. So you would see certain nations around him, they were sacrificing unclean animals, clean animals, human beings, etc., etc. So the concept of sacrifice was in a primal state, but now we elevated as Elohim on earth, embodied in human form. There will be no need to sacrifice anymore. It will be our conscious behavior and righteousness. That will be the sacrifice, as Micah chapter 6, verse 8 clearly tells us. So, yeah, you know, there are instances where we had sacrifice, but that was framed within the universal laws that are outlined in the Torah. But that's not a necessity, not in this day and age. We on a whole nother level. So, for any of those that say, well, you have to have a sacrifice or a living sacrifice and the atonement of sins, I would say, yeah, that would be fine within that dispensation of time when the people mind was primal. But now we're in a whole nother different dispensation. We're lofty. We the gods of the planet. We don't need to sacrifice today. We're on a different playing field, a different ball game. So it's our righteousness or going back to that original Edenic mind state where sacrifice or sacrificial requirements was unnecessary. That was just put into a frame. This is why everywhere where it talks about sacrifice, it uses that Hebrew word key that is not being translated, giving you the choice to sacrifice or not. That's why even when you look in the book of Daniel, notice how Daniel and the Hebrew men that was with them, they were all vegans. Like real dietary consciousness is veganism. The eating of flesh came when we fell into a lower state of self. So when we see these prognostications talking about we would sacrifice all these thousands of bullocks and all that in the book of Isaiah, we got to understand the people at that time and how they seen their future. Once we look at the Tanakh, falsely called the Old Testament, from a psychological base and how the people thought psychologically at that time, we can understand and we can abstract the principle, not the literalcism, because certain things are non and void today. Because we are a whole new people, we are a whole new ethnogenesis people today, and our mind is in tune with the social environment around us. So, how do we abstract these ideas and put them in the social frame for us to live accordingly today? So, no, I don't advise Messianic nor Torah only to sacrifice anything, not a human being, not an animal. We are that which wills to exist. It's our everyday living and our walk that will be our sacrifice. Hallelujah.
Let me ask you, because I'm listening to you and I've heard some similar things from the community of Demona. Are you any way connected with them?
I'm a prince in that community. Yes, that's the community that I'm with. The one that appointed me a prince is the late Prince Asiel. There were three founders. The late Ben Ami, also known as Adonenu, Rabbeinu Ben Ami ben Yisrael HaMoshiach. Y'all affectionately know him as Ben Ami. Then you have the late Chancellor of Affairs, Nasik or Prince Dr. Shaliach ben Yahuda. He was the founder and the dean of the School of the Prophets Institute in Dimona, Israel, Northeastern Africa. And then you had the late international ambassador, Nasik, also known as Prince Asiel ben Shaliach ben Yisrael. I sat under his feet for over 28 years. He's the one that appointed me a prince before he made transition. He transitioned in 2022 when I was in Dimona, but he appointed me a prince in 2016. Yes, I'm with that specific community. Yes.
Um, how do you view the women's role within the Hebraic community?
That's a good question. I acknowledge that men and women are equal, but equality doesn't mean sameness. Our roles are different. Our perspectives are different, but the responsibility is shared. When we look in the better sheet in its original form, where this imbalance is coming in is based on the mistranslations that we have in the English. For instance, we see the word Ha'adam, which we translate as Adam. They'll tell you that Adam means ruddy or man or whatever, but it doesn't mean that in the Hebrew. It means the one who rises with stretched arms. When we look at the Hebrew, Sinaitic pictorial Hebrew, we see a aleph. Or let me give it to you in full detail. the firstborn or the first blood rising with outstretched arms. The first word you'll see is a het or a ha. It's an image of a man, which is also inclusive of a woman with outstretched arms facing the northern star. Then you'll see, which is an image of an ox head. And then you see
the letter A.
Yes, and you see the or the dam, which is a doorway to go within. And then you see the meme or the ma, which is the image of water waves. So when you put that dollar in the meme, it becomes dam, which is the blood of grapes, as in the blood of grapes. And then you put that olive with the dam. Now you got Adam, which is the first blood. Then you put the ha there, again, that image of a man with outstretched arms. So when you say ha Adam, it means the firstborn or the first blood rising with outstretched arms facing the northern star. And in that retrospect, when a child is born from the matrix of a woman, you see the child rising with outstretched arms to the mother. When we look at Ha'adam, we see the connection with the word Adamah. And what's very unique about this cosmological understanding, you will see the Ha at the beginning of Adam, Ha'adam, and then you see that same Ha or Hey at the end of Adamah. So what is this telling us? This is telling us a being that's neither male nor female, but has in principle male and female principle that is born from the earth's surface. So it's telling us about the ecology, which later on became separated into two sexes, so-called Wanikiva. Male and female, he created them and called their name Adam or Adam. So man wasn't on the planet first. Women weren't on the planet first. It was an asexual being that was neither male nor female, but had masculine and feminine principle, which later separated into sexes. Adam doesn't mean man, it means the firstborn or the first blood rising with outstretched arms. Where it says that the red was taken from Adam, that's a mistranslation. The Hebrew word there is Zalah, which is the feminine principle that resided within Ha'adam. So in essence, both men and women came at the same time. So yes, men and women are equal, but again, equality doesn't mean sameness. Our roles are different, our perspectives are different, but the responsibility is shared. And when we look at ancient antediluvian time, what caused the imbalance was the feminine matriarchic system, because before the patriarchic system, you had the matriarchic system, and before the matriarchic system, you had this Edenic system of balance. The matriarchic system caused the imbalance. When the patriarchic system came, it tried to bring back balance, but because of the egotism within the masculine, that also caused the imbalance. So both the matriarchic system and the patriarchic system is off, even though we are patrilineal, yes, but we're not patriarchal. We're Edenic and base.
Speaking of masculine energy, how would you address the misogyny mentality, which is prevalent among a lot of the Israelite male within our community? Not all, because we do have some wonderful brothers in our community. However, we have more than a few that are very abrasive, very abusive, and emotionally, financially, physically, in some cases, and verbally abusive and manipulative to this a lot of our sisters in the community. And it is a big problem. And I've heard so many complaints about this, even though we have some brothers that say, oh, it's not true. Yes, it is. Because when I came into the truth about my testimony, when I came into the truth 8 years ago, my family members were very afraid for me. They were very afraid. They were very concerned. They feared that some of these men would hurt me in some type of way, because I do have some male family members within my bloodline. They're very overprotective of me, and they probably would take somebody's head off about me. So they didn't want me coming into this. They was like, the men are too aggressive. They're too aggressive. They're misogynist. So again, what is your perspective on a lot of our Israelite brothers within this Hebrew Israelite community in America who are very abusive and they treat the women like subordinates in this community?
Yeah, I've definitely heard stories myself. Many of them stories are true. I even heard sides even from sisters being wicked. Both the men and the women are wicked. Now let's start with the men first. Remember when you go into Isaiah, the 3rd chapter, remember the men are being judged first. Again, many of these men in Israel have crept in these ideas and overtones from the slave master. When we look at the social structure of the slave master during slavery times, they were very, very misogynistic with their own women. We know that. And a lot of these men in Israel, because of the low downtrodden state that our people have been in, they crept in these misogynistic ideas and put them within the framework of the Israelite culture through ignorance. And because psychologically they couldn't express that hate that they had towards the slave master, they imposed this on their sisters. You know what I'm saying? You'll see the same misogynistic, ingredients that we seen the slave masters do to their wives. We see this within the Israelite community. Now, is this a part of the Israelite community? No. Another thing that has to be expressed in me defending the Israelite community. When you look at the totality of Israel, this is not most of Israel. Majority of this, and again, I don't want to be on here like pointing fingers. I don't want to do that, but I have to speak the truth. A lot of the misogynistic ideas come from a lot of what you would call these camps. And when you look at these camps, they're very, and I said this earlier, they're very religious and based. When you have a religious mentality versus sovereign nationalistic mentality, these psychological behaviors can creep in. And because we see this on social media, sometimes we give a blanket form of idealism on the Israelite community. Like if something happened right now in the Israelite community, let's say if one of the One West camps do something, I'm just going to use them as an example. On the street corner, you will see Israelites on the street corner. All of them come from out of UPK. They're just off branches, which I know you're familiar with. Whether you're talking about the House of Israel, Sons of Thunder, whatever the case may be, they're connected to this One West idea. So if you see a camp, let's say GMS on the street corner, and they caught using the B word, whatever the case may be, all Israel becomes blanket by what people see on social media. And if they're not traveling and dealing with different communities, congregations, and traveling throughout the United States and all over the world, they most of the time look at Israel based on what they see on the street corner. And a lot of sisters get turned off because most sisters that have these stories through my research and me counseling different people going through these things, they come from out of these camps. They come from out of these camps. And I'm not saying that these non-camps don't have issues, because they do, but it's not to the extreme that we're seeing because of our interpretations of the scripture. So yes, there is misogyny amongst the men in Israel. And I'm not going to say all men. I'm going to say there's misogyny amongst those who have a religious idea of the scripture. You know what I'm saying? And there's also feminism, because if we're going to talk about the masculine, we're going to talk about the feminine. There's a school of thought, and it could be arising because of resisting this misogynistic behavior, which in turn caused the deviancy within the feminine. Now it's getting so bad on the feminine side that we're seeing episodes in camps where there are females in the community that's, they're transgender men that's females that's coming into the community and they're pushing this. I'm not going to put it out there. There's back chat groups of females who are undercover lesbians and pushing this deviant behavior in our communities. So not only do we have this masculine imbalance, and to counter that masculine or ultra masculine misogynistic behavior, it's causing deviant behavior to fall upon the females to the point there's like a reversal, a role, so to say. So now you got this war going on, mainly on social media. It's sad to say it's not really the world scope of Israel. It's certain pockets in Israel, but because people look at social media, they're only going to focus on that. So what I'm saying is the men, they were judged first in Isaiah, the 3rd chapter. Then you see the women being judged. No, let me correct myself. I'm incorrect. First, you see the government of Israel being judged, the leadership. Y'all know Isaiah chapter 3. And then you see the men in Israel get judged. Then you see the women. So just as we've seen this fall of our nation, you're going to see the rise of our nation. So yes, my sister, I could never deny to you that there isn't misogyny in Israel. The way to get misogyny out of Israel is we got to get rid of religiosity. That is the problem. We are coming into the culture with our Gentile baggages, the captivity we've been in. We want to keep hold of certain things that the Master gave us. And it's a major problem in Israel when we try to dominate. We don't have to dominate. That's if you got to dominate a woman, there's no need to even be that woman. They're taking
and it really is. It's a serious problem. It's very, very, very. You have no idea how serious this is because I've spoken to multiple sisters, and many of them have left the Hebrew Israelite community and they went back into the Christian church or they went back into the streets. I'm gonna let my sister come in and ask the next question. I want to get my.
Yeah, I just want to say one last thing to what you were saying. That word where it says dominate in the book of Genesis, it doesn't use the word dominate. Where it says be fertile and dominate the earth, and a lot of men in Israel took that. The word should be maintained. And another thing, not dominate. And I can't give an excuse for a man or a woman. I don't care what's going on in your life. Once you know who Yah is Yah. We gotta separate a bad relationship from the Hebrew culture. And what's happening, people will align the Hebrew culture with a bad relationship. And that's not justice. You have bad relationships in the Christian community, the Islamic communities, the Afrocentric community, whatever the case may be, there's bad relationships. But it doesn't have anything to do with the law, statutes, and commandments. If a person goes to humanity, then that sin still falls on them. Because even though that man was wicked, you don't turn around and become wicked. Because you will see a lot of sisters that have these bad relationships. Not only do they get into what princes know, they start getting into the dark arts. They start getting into the commandment of God, or they start getting into the ephod traditions. Anything that they tell it, you know what I'm saying? But
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. And myself, based on my experience, I just had dinner with a handful of Islamic brothers about 5 months ago, and I was treated with the utmost respect. And yes, there are dysfunctional relationships in every religion. However, there's some that has more than others. And this is where my opinion that we need our leaders to come in and program and teach our men the proper way on how to govern and head our families. So that's all I have to say on that right there. Sis, you have a question?
Yeah, I don't know if he stepped out for a minute.
No, 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 no.
Oh, here. Okay.
No, I
Well,
was saying,
since we're
I heard
talking
everything.
about the misogyny, and you mentioned bad relationships, and also, as I said before, you're part of you attached to the Demona community, and to my understanding, they're polygynous there, right? Okay,
Absolutely.
so there's a lot of debate, as you say, online mostly,
Yeah,
monogamy versus polygyny. What are
yeah.
your thoughts on that? Because a lot of people are saying, like, basically polygyny is the only way to be an Israelite, whereas I myself believe righteous marriage, period, should be the thing. But you have your pro monogamy, your pro polygyny, and um, I've heard a lot of brothers basically call women wicked and jealous hearted because they don't want to be polygynous. So, what are your thoughts on this polygyny? Is it the only
Monogamy.
true marriage in Israel, or where do you stand on this?
That's a good question. First of all, as y'all know, I'm polygynous. I have 3 nashim. You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
Can you
I
not
mean,
Sheen, because you speak a lot of Hebrew. We may not have Hebrew people.
nashim is the plural for wives. Isha is the singular. Some people pronounce it Ayasha. In modern Hebrew, it's Isha, that's wife. When you have more than one wife, that's nashim. So I knew this question was going to come up. I knew it was going to come up. So let's get into it. For us to understand the marriage structure of Israel, we have to understand the social construct of the words that we're talking about. You'll hear people arguing like, F polygamy. When I hear them say polygamy, I know they don't know what they're talking about. There's a difference between polygamy versus polygyny. That's number one. Polygamy is when a man can take on more than one wife, or a wife can take on more than one husband. Polygyny is based on a choice. A man can take on more than one wife, or a man can take one wife. That's polygyny. Monogamy is a social construct that came by the way of the Roman Empire, by the way of the papacy. When a woman's husband died, her assets became controlled by the state through a monogamistic system. Because remember, in Catholicism, you're married to the papacy. So when a man died, all that man's resources went to the Catholic Church. So when there's an argument in the Israelite community versus polygyny versus monogamy, monogamy shouldn't even be put in the situation because monogamy has to be understood along with polygyny by the way of a social construct. Now, when you look at Abraham, Yitzhak, Yaakov, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, we see Isaac, he had one wife, but it was based on a choice. See, the problem when people talk about polygyny, when they talk, they only talk based on, oh, a man can have more than one wife. That's not what polygyny is saying. Polygyny is saying man has a choice. He can either have one wife, he's still a polygynist, or he can have more than one wife. So if a man in Israel chooses to have one wife, that's fine. If a man chooses to have more than one wife, that's fine. As long as that man is dealing with the law, statutes, and commandments. And one of the chapters that people use to justify this being unrighteous and evil and things like that is Deuteronomy chapter 18. And starting at the 15th verse. Can you speak about how a king, it says that he can't multiply silver and gold, and he can't multiply horses, he can't multiply wives. So, because they lack the Hebrew understanding, they say, see, a man can only have one wife. Well, that's not what that's saying. What it's saying is a king should multiply his riches to boast himself in front of his brethren, that he should use just balance and measurement in all affairs. That's why the king always wrote the commandments when he goes up. So that's like saying a man can only have one piece of silver or one piece of gold or one horse. Because if we're going to say one wife, would it mean that as well? And people run with that. Another thing to understand polygyny, I think people need to come on the ground. In Africa, among wives in Africa that still know that they're Israelites and still uphold the Israelite culture. One of my wives is from the Party tribe over here in Tanzania. And her community, they're all Israelites and they're all pro-poly. The argument is coming in the United States. And the reason why it's coming in the United States, it's the same question that the sister was saying about misogyny. And I said that the European idea crept in the mind of our people during slavery. And now that's being imposed with our people. That's the thing with the institution of marriage. We've been over in the United States so long, and the institution of marriage has been given to us by the way of monogamy. And we have been bamboozled, or our sisters, not all of them, but many of our sisters have been bamboozled into this concept of jealousy. And I'm not sharing my man, et cetera, et cetera. All this come by the way of a social construct within the captivity. And when we go to the continent, we see that 98.5% of Africa is polygynous. The only ones that are not polygynous, and it's sad to say, is those that embrace Christianity. But then, even when you study the people, they still practice polygynistic relationships, but it's just not like being condemned. Like, for instance, the Chaga tribe in Tanzania. There's 125 tribes in Tanzania. The Chaga, yeah, they're Israelite by bloodline, but Christianity, mainly Lutheranism, has been imposed on the people. So a lot of the ideas of European imperialism dominate a spirit. And but at the same time, the men still have multiple mistresses. And the wives will know and they won't say anything. The point that I'm saying is just on the ground alone shows this was our natural behavior. But then when we look at it in a scientific perspective now we talk about the mentality of a woman and the mentality of a man. A woman is always going to submit herself, by the way, and I don't mean being dominant, but submit herself by her being possessed by that individualistic man. A man is, he cannot be possessed by a woman. A man can possess a woman, but a woman can't possess a man. And I don't mean possession and owning. No, I'm talking about when that man ejaculates in you, sister, that spirit of ejaculation is in you. That's why it was a wicked crime in Israel for a man to go into another man's wife. He committed two violations. One, he went into another man's wife. Two, symbolically and spiritually, he's practicing a form of homosexuality. Why do I say that? Because that spirit of that man is in that woman, and now he's going into that woman. He's in total violation. That's why in our culture they are both put to death under Torah Constitution. If we had our own sovereign land, there would be a death penalty dealing with adultery, but that's another story, another topic. But yeah, I'm totally 100% pro poly all day, yesterday, today, and forevermore. But polygyny has to be understood within a cultural and social framework. The problem over in the United States is you have men that take on wives, but they still have these niggerisms with them. You see what I'm saying? and there's not a community with them. Like when you go to Demona, it's like polygyny is not an issue because they done separated themselves and they've been gone from the United States for over 56 years, close to 60 years. So they was able to share a lot of the social niceties of the United States. And then you got to remember, children were born into that cultural persuasion. So you're not going to have this big debate that you see mainly on social media. And it's sad to say, you see it on social media, but the greater body of Israel throughout the world, you don't see that. So yeah, no, I totally deny monogamy, but polygyny is a choice. If a man wants to have one wife, he can have one wife. If you want to have more than one wife, then that's fine too. Hallelujah.
So then, what do you, um, how do you, when it says in the Bible, the two shall become one, what does that mean to you?
That's a good question. I knew you was going to go to Bereshit, Genesis 2:24, right? In the Hebrew, it doesn't say that. When it talks about man and woman shall become one flesh, the flesh itself is the Yiladim, the children that they will produce. But what's very interesting in that verse is the Hebrew word Isha. But it doesn't say Isha, it says Ishat. It gives the thought at the end, which sometimes, based on the grammatical structure, one that will born many. Like for instance, Bereshit, it doesn't mean in the beginning. It means in beginning. So sometimes in the Ifrit, based on the structure of things, that thought can give a pluralization. So when we look at the Hebrew, when a man leaves from his father and mother, he shall cling to his wives, or his wife, which in turn will born wives, and they shall become one flesh in children or in Yiladim. So the idea is talking about born in children. How do we know that? Notice how every time one of our forefathers supposedly married and then from there they immediately have a child. You have communities in Africa, right, that believe that marriage is complete once you have a child. Like over here in Tanzania, there's two understandings of marriage in Tanzania. Either you have this ceremony and the people see, that's the typical. But another way is if you get a woman pregnant and she has a child, in Tanzanian law, that's your wife. So you see certain Hebrew concepts that's still amongst the children of Israel, even in the captivity. So, and some Hebrews over here in Africa understand it. Marriage is only consummated once y'all have a child. Yeah, y'all may have like a feast ceremony and a ceremony and all that. To them, that's the engagement. But the completion is when y'all have a child. Now y'all married. Now y'all one flesh. So it all depends on how one sees that verse. But what I will tell you is that verse has been totally mistranslated in the King James Version to give you a monogamy understanding of that verse when that verse isn't even conveying monogamy at all. It has nothing to do with monogamy. And that's another problem in Israel. In Israel, many are interpreting the scripture like Christians. A prime example, you have most Israelites that are using Strong's Concordance. Why would a person use a Christian vehicle or a Christian document to talk about Israelite affairs? There are 16,000 mistranslations in the Strong's Concordance. The Strong's isn't translating how the Hebrew is translating it. It's translating the Hebrew words based on how the King James Version translated the verse. That's why you will never hear a Hebrew in Israel use a Strong's Concordance. If you go to a Hebrew speaking person in Damon, because the first language in Damona with the people is Hebrew and then English. So if I go with a Strong's Concordance, they'll laugh at me. They'll be like, what is that? Oh, it's a concordance. No real Hebrew speaker uses Strong's Concordance. We got it again. We have to get out of these religious mind states, and we got to stop interpreting scriptures like Christians. And that's a major problem in the Israelite community that they tackle into. They tackle into these scriptures as Christians, and they get these Christian interpretations and they incorporate it in Israelite thought. That's a major problem. Hallelujah.
Let me ask you then. So, because you're Torah only and you're speaking of the misinterpretations, how then does a person achieve salvation if you don't believe in Yeshua Hamashiach? How then does a person achieve salvation under Torah?
Walk righteous. See, the Christians or religious people that believe in the Bible, they give you this mind state that this is how you get salvation. But when we read the text, the Creator tells us to uphold the law, statutes, and commandments. And if not, we will go into captivity. When we read Devarim or Deuteronomy chapter 28, 15 to 68, we see that we go into captivity, not because we didn't believe in the Moshiach, or we didn't believe in the New Testament or the Quran or the Book of the Purim Heru, Epic Stelman, Imuni, Lisa, whatever one wants to believe in. We didn't go into captivity because of that. We went into captivity because we violated Torah. And when we read in the scripture with Solomon in 1 Samuel, along with the Book of Kings, we see that Solomon or Melech Shalomo said, if we rethink ourselves in the land of the great captivity and turn from our wicked ways and return to Torah, then that is our salvation. Torah is our salvation, not this man dying and giving us this salvation. No man, when we read in the 24th chapter, verse 16 of Devarim, father shall not die for son, son shall not die for father. Each man, which is inclusive for woman too, they die for their own sin. When you go into Ezekiel, the 18th chapter, we see the same thing. You see what I'm saying? And it gives you an analogy of a man dying. We see that Moses or Moshe or Masha, he wanted to die for Israel. And the Most High Yahweh told him, no, you're going to die. They're going to atone for their own sin, or they're going to be judged for their own unrighteousness. So I don't acknowledge that we need a human sacrifice to atone for us. No. Remember, the nations of the earth, they believed in them concepts before Christianity. You had the Dayan Tammuz, you go into Egypt, Babylon, Assyria. They all had these same Dayan resurrected, immaculate conception stories before the New Testament even came into existence. Remember, the Most High told us, don't be like the other nations. Remember, our hell or our captivity, our hell on earth is captivity. And this is the thing I ask any Israelite that believe in these concepts of heaven and hell. If you go into the court of law and you're fighting a homicide and you beat the homicide, you win, you get acquitted. You know, under the court of law, they can't recharge you for the same homicide. In legal terms, that's known as double jeopardy. So when Israelites want us to believe in the concepts of heaven and hell, if you don't have this salvation, they want us to believe that the curses came upon us, that we will go into captivity. We will lose our language, our culture, our land, our identity. We would get tortured, mingled, castrated, babies getting cut out the stomach, getting stomped to the ground. Y'all know the story of our history. And then after that, we die and either go to heaven or hell. It don't say that nowhere in the prognostication that we would die and go to heaven or hell. Heaven and hell has always been mental states, metaphorically, shamayim. And the manifestation and substance from the mind, or shamayim, would be eretz or arat tazah, or the earth plane, the substance that we were produced from the mind. So we're not going to die and go to heaven or hell. Our hell has been the loss of identity, the loss of our culture, the loss of our history as a people. And once we come from out of that state, out of that fear factor of dying and going somewhere, then we'll understand that salvation is only in Yah Yisrael and Torah Constitution. Hallelujah.
So you don't think, okay, so where do you think we go, or where do you believe we go when we die? Do we go anywhere, or what do you feel?
Go or do we blend in? I mean, energy can't be created nor destroyed. It only can transform. Remember, in Jeremiah it says, before you was in the womb of your mother, I knew thee. And then when we look in Job, we see that it says, for I came from my mother's womb, I shall return into another. So energy just constantly recycles itself. That's it. You know, I came from Yah. I don't even think people are ready for what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it because you asked the question. We are Yah. We are Yahweh. But we're just vibrating on different frequencies, which thus causes us to be objectively looked at as portions of the Creator, so to say. But if we talking about the source and substance, or what we know in Hebrew as ayan and yis, the subjective and the objective, in that retrospect, only thing you're doing is returning back to the higher self of consciousness. So in essence, everything is Yah, but just vibrating in different forms and different frequencies. And all you're going to do is recycle back to that which you came from. But everybody in Israel is not ready for that. They're not ready to understand that they Allahayim or embodied in human form. Not ready for that. Most Israelites, like I said, they're very, very religious. Like, for instance, if I tell you right now, there's no such thing as prayer in Hebrew, you'll be like, huh? You'll be like, what you talking about? It's they all throughout the Bible prayer. Well, everywhere where it says prayer in the Old Testament, that's a mistranslation. The word is tafallah. The root word is palau, which means to judge oneself. So we done took it like, oh, and God took it as such. And I'm not saying we didn't have a form of meditative prayer, if that's what you want to call it. But the concept of how we approach the all in all is so religious that we can even say the name Yah and actually be praying to a false deity. Because our minds, we may verbally say the tetragrammaton, we may verbally say Yahweh, Yahweh, Yehovah, Yahweh, whatever. But our mind is so far from our ancestors and how they view the all in all, we're actually praying to a false deity, even though we're using the creative name. And until we transform the mind, we have to transform the mind and come from out of these religious thoughts of our enemy. That's the only way. We gotta come from out of a religious understanding. If not, we're going to still have misogyny, like that sister is complaining about, because one of the things she brought up is the misogynistic behavior with the Black man in the Israelite nation. And this is going to continue on as long as they have these religious overtones. Once we get the religion from out of the Israelite nation, and remember, spirituality and religion is two different things. Once we get that religion from out of Israel, it will eliminate misogyny. It will eliminate the deviant behaviors and thoughts within our people. And it also bring our people into accountability. Because with these religious overtones, these men can make excuses. Oh, I beat my wife, but all I got to do is ask God for forgiveness and God will forgive me. There's no accountability. verse, when there's accountability, you hear the sister, you get a knock on the door, and there's some brothers that's going to ball you up because now there's accountability in our culture. But as long as religion is in our culture, just give it up to God. God will take care of it. I can beat my wife all day. I can cheat on my wife or I can cheat on my wives all day. There's no accountability. There's nothing. I just pray to God and God will forgive me. But that's not true Hebrew Israelite culture. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah. What is your perspective on the set apart spirit, and what position and role do you play that you feel that the set apart spirit plays within our act of worship, which I call it the Kodash Rawah?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you said set apart. That's very interesting that because holy is, in fact, a pagan word. It goes back to the Hebrew word helios, which is a halo. The word for this, the set apart. I don't even like using the word spirit because that's also Greek. So in the Hebrew, we see the word ruach. So you have a rosh or a ra, which is the image of a head. And then the wall, which is the image of a nail or peg. And then we see the chet, which is a fence. So when we say ruach hadash, we're talking about a set apart mind state. It's a set apart mind state. And also, for sisters, that word is feminine. That word is feminine. It's not masculine. You see, we gotta get this religion away from us because we see the word he all throughout the Tanakh, and it causes an imbalance. Even when it talks about the ruach or this, you'll see he, not understanding that he is only talking about a certain form of masculine power. But if we're dealing in the technical, true sense, Yah is neither masculine or feminine. Yah is masculine and feminine based on manifestation through Elohim or the Alahayim. That's where you see the masculine and feminine, not Yahweh. Yahweh is, there's no masculine and feminine with Yahweh. Even though we are seeing translations, why? Because it's going into a bastard language. So when you see certain power and force that is expressed through Yahweh's Elohim, they'll put he there. But the disservice comes when there's a feminine, you don't put she. You don't put she there. So we even see misogyny within the mistranslation. You see my point? That I'm showing where the idea of misogyny comes in based on religion. And until we get a body politic of our Hebrew scholars to come together and admit that when we're dealing with the Creator is neither masculine nor feminine. The Creator is neither,
I
it's not
agree.
a man, but the Creator expresses a dimension or dimensions known as Elohim. And within Elohim, that's where the masculine and feminine comes in at. And that has to be understood. So yes, the set apart or the Ruach Kodesh, I acknowledge what it is. It's an intelligence or it's an enlightened consciousness that sparks, the mind to move forward and upward. And sometimes even in such a lofty state, you can have an ecstasy when you're in a form of, I want to say, reverence, first worship. I get there in a second about why I'm saying it like that. But whereas when you go to church to them, the quote unquote Holy Spirit or the Holy Ghost, it hits them and they go through this metamorphosis. That's religion. That's religion. But I'm not saying that we can't pay reverence to a point that there isn't a form of ecstasy. I'm not saying that because we seen David dance for Yah. And we seen, you know what I mean? And even when you look on the ground in Africa, we see that as well. The problem is we have to be careful. Like I said, we can say a word, but if our mind is not right, we can still be activating a false deity. So we want to be careful. We want our mind and our understanding to be aligned with that word. So we can have, so you don't want to go into an Israelite congregation if it reminds you of Christianity when you go into that congregation, then you know they off. You know they off. If you go, you're talking about going into an Israelite setting and it's reminding you of Christianity, then you know it's off. It's off. You know what I'm saying? No matter how good these people are or whatever the case may be, the Most High told us in the 13th chapter of Deuteronomy, even if it can be close to your bosom. If they're enticing you with another deity to put them to death. Now, I'm not telling anybody on your show to put anybody to death or anything like that. So let me make that clear. I'm only telling you what the text say. But how do we put these people to death today? We cut them off from our presence. Now, in religion, they teach you that there's something called a day of worship. You either go to Juma on Friday, you go to the synagogue on Saturday, or you go to church on Sunday. That's not worship in Hebrew culture. That's a form of reverence. In the Hebrew, in the commandment, it says, "Sheshashamin ta'avod." For 6 days you shall work or worship. Work and worship are synonymous in Hebrew culture. The word is ived, which means to work for, the toll for, to slave for. So worship is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week action. So it defines the clothes that you wear, the conversations that you have, the food that you eat, and who you conversing with, who you centering yourself around, etc. All this constitutes worship, the type of job you have that determines if you worshiping or not. So worship in Hebrew culture is a lifestyle. Religion, worship is you go into a building and you pray to God or you praise God. They say that's worship. In Hebrew, the word is lushbot. 6 days you shall, you shall work or worship. The seventh day, the Shabbat, lishbot. Now you're halting from the continuous action that you've been doing all week. So if your week, your 6 days was evil and you was running around doing all this crazy stuff, and then when the Shabbat come in, oh, praise Yah, your Shabbat is non and void because everything that you've been doing during the week to lead up to the Shabbat, it means nothing because that's not the true understanding of the Shabbat. In the religious mind state, Shabbat is a day of worship. In the Hebrew mind state, worship is a continuous action. Two different things. Hallelujah.
Speaking of spirituality, since we're on spirituality topic, why do you feel that some people suffer more than others, more than most, in order to be an example for others as a scapegoat or like a sacrifice to be a teaching figure amongst the majority? Do you feel it's because that person is chosen or because the person is like the world say karma? What is your perspective on that? If you get what I'm saying.
I definitely get exactly what you're saying, and that's a domino effect. Within the nation of Israel, you always had these incarnated examples when Israel was in a state of decline. Like you see the suffering servant Isaiah, you see Jeremiah, you see Job, you see these good men going through this suffering for Israel to resurrect psychologically, spiritually, morally. And then you see this anointed or messianic nation, Israel, the so-called black man, being the suffering servant to the nations of the earth. Because the question will also be asked, why are all the nations on the planet, why is the black man, woman, and child in the United States suffering more than any other people on the planet? We the last hire, first fire, fill up all the incarcerated. We when it comes to the prisons, we fill them up 88%. When it comes to the 8 diseases, we plague the most: sickle cell, high blood pressure, et cetera, et cetera. When it comes to police brutality, we just seen what happened in that state prison last week, where them guards murdered that man in front of the whole world. And all they got was fight. They murdered him in front of everybody. Like, there's no way of getting him. Beat this man to death. And they just got fired. So you're seeing this domino effect. You're seeing this suffering individual servant within the nation of Israel, within their decline. And then you're seeing the collective body politic, which is the nation of Israel, as the suffering servants for the nations of the earth in the nation's decline. So why is this happening? It's like a woman in birth. She's going through pain. She's going through anguish to have this child. So within the nation of Israel, there's a collective consciousness. And within that collective consciousness, there's a memory of righteousness that sometimes pushes out and born righteous individuals. And these righteous individuals try to lead us back as a collective body politic, a nation, to Yah, which in turn, we as a nation can lead the nations back. So, yes, that's always going to happen. Remember, we had our Malcolm X's, we had our Dr. We had these, remember, COINTELPRO, the counterintelligence program was what? To stop the rise of a Black Messiah, electrify the nationalistic aims of Black America. So as long as Israel is in a state of decline, there's always going to be a birth of an anointed figure in our midst to bring us back consciously, so we as a collective body politic can bring the nations into consciousness. Just like when we look in the 19th chapter or Wayikra or Leviticus, remember Yahweh said in 19:5 that we are kingdom of priests or a kingdom of Kohanim. But within the kingdom of priests, we have our Levitical priests. So the Levitical priests are the Levitical priests to the nation of Israel. But the nation of Israel are the priests to the nation of the earth. Just like when you're talking about the anointed or the anointed, the Moshiach, out of the line of David, you will always have these anointed of the line of David in the midst of Israel. And the anointed Moshiach for the nations would be the nation of Israel. See that domino effect? You got the Levitical priest, then the kingdom of priests. You got that anointed leader. You got that anointed nation. You got that suffering servant, like you pointed out, my beloved sister, in our midst, and you got suffering nation. So that would be my response. As long as Israel is in captivity, there's always going to be within the consciousness of that collectivity righteousness, whether it's subconscious, whatever, that's going to born out from the pain. Because notice, these men and women always come in the midst when we suffering at our lowest point. You will see them coming, that pain. So again, the nation of Israel symbolically would be that woman, Chevelle, giving birth through the pain and anguish, that anointed that will come to give us a stepping stone to the next phase of our growth and development as a nation. Hallelujah.
Okay.
We've been talking about spirituality, heaven and hell, all of these things. And it kind of leads me to my next question. One of the hats you wear is hip hop artist. And you have a song called Nine Ether Being. So, how does that tie into spirituality? And can you kind of break that song down for us?
Yes, Nine Ether Bean. And I don't know if y'all keeping up with me. Right now, I'm at war with Fat Joe and different cats trying to say hip hop is 50-50. And I'm on the side that hip hop was created by FBA, Foundational Black Americans. I'm in direct contact. Y'all can see me on scoreboard, keepers, where I'm in direct contact with the pioneers of hip hop, Trixie, Daza, you know what I'm saying? DJ Phase from the Black Spades, who actually brought the five elements and created hip hop out of Bronxdale projects and Bronxdale, in the Bronxdale area in the Bronx, New York. But not Ether Bean, I got that name, you know, from this this pamphlet known as Nine Ether Bean that was written by a man by the name of Dr. Malachi Z. York. Now, I don't agree with everything he's saying, but when you talking about mathematics, the highest number would be nine. We're told to count from 0 to 9, and you every time you hit that 9, ciphers up. So 1 to 9, 9 to 19, 19 to 29, etc. You constantly seeing that 9. And when our hair grows, and I used to have real long hair before I got alopecia, but when our hair grows, it grows out into a 9 shape.
Mhm.
And the Europeans' hair grow, it grows out into a 6. So when I'm saying I'll be the 9 ether being of the 4D, the fourth dimension, I'm a Elohim or Elohim. In the Hebraic studies, I acknowledge not all Black people, but only the children of Israel. Their history is older than what we think. On the surface, biblical, how we've been taught, our history is 6,000 years. I beg to
Mhm.
differ. When we look in the Hebrew text, I'm saying our history is 311 trillion, 40 billion. That's why you hear me say 311 trillion, 40 billion, infinite. Children time travel by tree of lives, Hithore. When you're looking at the Genesis or the better sheet, what you see is Elohim sprinkling from one dimensional plane to another dimensional plane. Certain Kabbalistic scholars call this by the way of Mokabbalite or the Sephardic tree of life, which they're really getting its base from the better sheet, the Torah. When we understand the origin of the Hebrews, they go back to an ancient Hebrews of the Indus Valley, known as the Yadavas. And when we understand that history, then we can put what is known as the Yuga cycle that became corrupted in Hinduism and put it back into its proper Hebraic social frame. And when we look, we'll see also in Deuteronomy 32, verse 6, it says that the Creator separated the bounds of the nations of the earth in accordance to the number of the children of Israel. And I asked many people, well, what does that mean? And nobody can answer that but one person that I knew. And his name is known as Prince Kez ben Israel, Prince Kazaridah ben Israel, out of Temple Kifraim. And he gave me the surface understanding, but the dynamics of the explanation, I'm the only one that tackled into this. Now, when you look at Exodus chapter 1, verse 11, or chapter 1, it talks about 69 souls came in with Yaakov, Jacob. Remember, Joseph was already in Egypt. So that was the 70 souls. Remember, Deuteronomy 32 says that the Most High divided the sons of Adam, Ha'adam, in accordance to the number of the children of Israel. When we go to Genesis 10, there are 70 nations. The souls that were in Egypt in 1876 BCE was 70. The question should be asked, how would Yahweh divide the nations according to the number of the 70 souls of Israel if the nations existed before Jacob's his children and his grandchildren? What I'm saying is that them 70 souls existed as the 70 Elohim who were charged over these 70 nations. When you look at the mythologies of the ancients of the earth, these mythologies are really talking about Israel when we were in the state of Elohim, guiding the nations to be in accordance with the universal law. But what happened, because our evil started to dominate, in turn fell and started to behave like the mortals. And from there, they started to worship us as gods, so to say, over the Most High. So when you read in Greek mythology, Arabian mythology, Mesopotamian, Egyptian mythology, all these mythos are the same stories talking about a group of beings known as Elohim, who later would become known as the children of Israel. We are on this earth plane to bring the people back to consciousness because our original mission was to guide the 70 nations into righteousness. But because of self-glorification, these nations started to worship us. And you see it in their mythology. So that's why you see that the nations of the earth were numbered according to us, because each of them 70 souls were an Elohim to guide each of these nations. But because we fell into degradation, they started to worship us. And that was a wrong move on the chessboard. So now we're back in the incarnated state to bring these nations back. That's why we were chosen, so to say, to come back on this planet to bring the children of men back into the reality of Yah Yisrael. Hallelujah. And that's not to say, that these nations would be following our ways in totality. No. What they would be doing is emanating righteousness through their cultural expression, as long as their customs aren't deviant and barbaric. Each nation has a right of their own autonomy. They have their own autonomy, as long as they're righteous and in tune with the natural order of things.
Let me ask you, you spoke on hip hop and they're saying that it's a 50-50 who started it, right? What do you think? Is this part of biblical prophecy? Why is it that us, especially FBAs, why is it that when we create something, the whole world seems to enjoy it or take credit for it more than we are able to for ourselves?
That's a good question, sister. You can hear me? Forgive me, my thing is off right now. I'm only putting more time on my internet. I'm back now.
Okay.
I'm back, y'all. Okay, I'm back. I just put it on there. Okay. I'm back. Yes, it's definitely a part of the fulfillment of purpose. That you're absolutely on point. When anybody studies hip hop, we got to understand the foundation of hip hop. And when we go into the foundation of hip hop, we talk about funk music, the civil rights movement, the Black Power movement. There's 5 elements of hip hop that start. Graffiti. Graffiti came out of gang culture, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 1940. He made it an artistic form with Cornbread out of North Philadelphia, 1965. His student was Top Cat 126, who went into New York and taught cats like Tacky and all them graffiti. DJing. DJing did not start in New York, nor in Jamaica. DJ started down south. When you start talking about Jocko the Bear or Jocko Henderson and all these down south DJs or disc jockeys. And what was going on after the Second World War, you had the British that gave Jamaicans radio, and they started tapping into the disc jockeys are down south, and they also was coming to the United States, to Florida, and getting work, and they start learning how to toast. Toasting don't go back to Jamaica. Toasting goes back to the southern disc jockeys that were toasting. Then from there, you also have the job talk that they was talking. That's why you can go and get the Cab Calloway's dictionary in 1939, and you can see the job talking. This is when you get your black exploitative movies, Five on the Black Hand Side, Cornbread, Earl and Me, Sheep of Baby, Coffee, right? Cleopatra Jones, Foxy Brown, Cross 110th Street. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right?
Mhm.
The Hispanic causes. Puerto Ricans didn't have this. Jamaicans didn't have it. This is all foundational Black American, right? Then you got breakdancing or pop locking. We know that breakdancing. We have the Mills Brothers going back 1934. We see our people down south breakdancing, windmilling, and all that. That ain't nothing new to us. Then you got rap. You can go to the Jubilees, 1946. We can go to Pygmy Marhill, 1968. We can go to the Last Poets, Automatic, Systematic, Low Control, Genetics, Synthetics, Demand Your Soul. That's a rap. That's Last Poets, right? Then you got Gil Scott Heron. Then the next one is knowledge. That's the fifth element of hip hop. We got the Hebrew Israelites. We got the Nation Gods of Earth, originally known as the 5% Nation, the Moorish Science Temple, the Shrine of the Black Madonna, the Black Panthers, right? The Nation of Islam, the Civil Rights Movement. And then you got James Brown with soul power, soul power. And the black space was imitating that. Spade power, spade power. So hip hop was created by 7 preteens known as the Little Rascals from Bronxdale Projects. And they became absorbed as a subdivision of the black spades, and they became known as the baby spades. And then you had another subdivision known as the young spades who start imitating the baby spades. What were the baby spades doing? Running around with this one turntable, scratching, doing kid stuff, rapping like Pig Meat Marhill. You know, here comes the judge, here comes the judge, beating on things, drumming. And then what the young spades do with the real god for the hip hop, DJ Disco King Mario, not Grandmaster Flash. He's not the original Grandmaster. The original Grandmaster is Grandmaster Flower, 1968, Brooklyn, New York. Not Bambaataa, not Kool Herc. Kool Herc, before he was a DJ, he was a graffiti artist. Before Grandmaster Flash was a DJ, he was a b-boy. So we know that this existed before them. The reason why they're trying to make these three the godfathers of hip hop is because of their West Indian background. Kool Herc was from Jamaica. Grandmaster Flash is from Barbados. Bambaataa is Jamaican / Barbadian. They know goddamn well that hip hop started with foundational Black Americans. When you talk breakdancing in the hip hop artistic form, 1970, Trixie. They lied and said Trixie was Puerto Rican. I know Trixie personally. I just did a show with Trixie last week. FBA. His mother is from South Carolina. His father's from North Carolina. They tried to say DJ Disco King Mario was half Puerto Rican. That was a lie. His people had to come out when they named this a street after him in the Bronx, New York. His people said live. The only reason why his name is Mario because his mother liked the name. Both Mario's parents, the late DJ Disco King Mario's parents, are both foundational Black Americans from down south. I know DJ Disco King Mario's daughter, Mina. Mina does shows with me. Then they tried to say Sasa. He came 1971. They tried to say he was a b-boy too, that he was Puerto Rican when he's a foundational Black American. They try to say cornbread in the writing that, and I know cornbread personally. I'm from Philly. Try to say cornbread was a dark-skinned Puerto Rican. They tried to say Cola Rock. They tried to say he was half Jamaican. Cola Rock said, I'm Black American. My mother is from North Carolina and my father's from New Jersey. So what is this conspiracy, right? To make these founders of the first generation of hip hop Puerto Rican. What is this? What is the sensation? And we know that the original B-boys were foundational Black Americans. Those that were rapping, those that were job talking, those that were, it all came out of this gang culture known as the Black Spade. And when the Black Spade fell apart, these Black Spades formed into cliques. So now you got the Casanovas. Then you get the Chuck Chuck City crew. Then you get Zulu Nation, where African Bambaataa, originally he was a savage nomad. And then from there, he became absorbed in Zulu Nation. Now, Bambaataa is not the original Zulu Nation. There were sets of Zulus before Bambaataa Zulu Nation. And the sister from Ohio, she's going to like this one. The original Zulu Nation came 1966 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The second Zulu Nation was a biker group from Ohio in 1969, known as Nation. There's an actual African-American foundational American biker group from Ohio, the first biker to have the name Zulu Nation, 1969, Ohio. Then third, Zulu Nation from Bambaataa. So there's the consciousness that's coming from the Carolinas that's going into different parts of the United States. And they are adapting to the social environment around them. And from that, now you getting the electric boogaloo, all that, what you see rerunning them doing over there in California. You're seeing this pop locket. Then you're seeing this break dancing in New York. Then you're seeing Dance Fever and Dancing on Air, artists in Philly. And then down south in Ohio, you get the Ohio Players, and you're getting all this roughly around the same time. That's because this was originally a part of our Israelite culture. And it didn't have a name. But when we spread it out, these elements were there. It was just those that were in Bronxdale projects that took five, even though it's more elements. But these five main elements, they took and they codified it into a culture. But the elements already existed. So yes, it is 100% correct. You're seeing this FBA movement separating themselves. And even though they may not fully understand the in-depthness, some do, because I'm FBA. It's only defining a lineage of people. And I'm gonna tell y'all, sisters, another thing to the Alco team, the sisters. A problem is this 12 tribe chart. Because when you look at the 12 tribe chart, they got these nations that are not Israelites on that chart.
Totally agree.
And that's a problem. I'm saying that the Israelites are the so-called Negroes of the United States and so-called Negroes scattered in the Western Hemisphere. So yes, Jamaicans are Israelites. Yes, Afro-Latinos are Israelites. The only natives that are Israelites through my research would be the Southeast natives of the United States. When you start talking like the Chippewas, your Seminoles, Cherokees, the original ones anyway. Yeah, them. But when you start talking about the Incans, the Aztecs, the Mayans, the Olmecs, they're not our people. They're not our people. So we gotta get out of this mindset that
Totally agree.
our people, when 84% of them, their DNA goes back to our haplogroup, which they Spaniards. most Puerto Rican ancestry go back to the slave master. That's why when we look at the early Hispanics that came in the 40s and 50s in New York and Philadelphia and all that, they didn't deal with us. We were the Moyos. We were the monkeys to these people. And let's just deal with it from a social anthropological perspective. Y'all saying y'all 50-50 in hip hop, Fat Joe? Well, that's opened up the crates of what your parents was listening to. And that's opened up the crates of our sisters on here and myself. What you gonna see? Miles Davis, Fats Domino, James Brown, Parliament Funkadelic, Gil Scott Heron, Last Poets, The Temptation, The Delphonics, Gladys Knight and the Pimps. These are the things you're going to see. You're not going to see no salsa and no merengue.
Just to put in my 2 cents. Just to put in my 2 cents. You know we the tribe of Judah, right?
Absolutely.
We are the tribe of praise.
That's
you agree with that?
Do you think all FBA are Judah?
I'm gonna say yes. And the reason why I'm saying that, now, all the slaves that came over, they're not Israelites. But all the slaves that came to the United States, yes. When we start to read the maps that they have, Port Judah, they brought us from Port Judah, from West Africa, from Port Judah, directly to Jamestown, Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
They are the tribe of Judah. Now, those that went on the islands, there was a mixture of Israelites and other indigenous tribes. Excuse me, sisters, real fast. Can I use the bathroom real quick? Maybe y'all can play a song of mine real fast. I gotta use the bathroom.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Oh, and by the way, sister from Ohio, how you say your name again?
Oh, she's muted. You're muted.
I just wanted to let you know. I wanted to let you know that there are good Hebrew brothers here. And
most definitely. Yeah, totally agree.
To let you know, you are live and direct in front of everybody. You are a beautiful sister. And trust me, Yah's preparing something great for you. Trust me, what I say.
Thank you. Okay.
Let me see if I can play one of his songs real quick.
And also our listeners out there, feel free to put a question in the comment box too.
Shalom. Can y'all hear me?
Shalom. Yeah, we hear you, bro.
All right, play my song, King Hezekiah.
I shine, Science Lion. Kid, dynamite, you got warrior. Preacher, how I higher. Two, turban wearing, shining. Majestic diamond up, white. Hezekiah, crown,
Welcome to the new age. I see through the eyes. Hezekiah, King Zion, war lion, shine onyx, radiate Yah diamonds. Yasharahla, now rising. 12 tribes, praise Yahweh supreme, sovereign power. Welcome to the new age. I see through the eyes. Hezekiah, King Zion, war lion, shine onyx, radiate Yah diamonds. Yasharahla, now rising. 12 tribes, praise Yahweh supreme, sovereign power. Just where LBB, the missing link, like the news of the Sphinx, watching the fall of Phoenix. Worshippers of Venus and Osiris penis. Wicked seas breeding demons. Apollo's tree under legion. Send a 6-pointed double jointed. Scribing ancient Hebrew on the pavement with a flame. Bodies fossilized under concrete cemented. Medusa's visions descended in the garden. Ayashah, Nakasha's talking. Slaughter Adam as divine sovereign. This is world's hardest heart and light. Fearful man looking in the mirror. Drinking Bloody Mary. Having orgies. 4 horsemen. Apocalypse now becoming 1/3 from this land. Start running to the Mona. Sun flares, burn Amalek with judgment. Yah's words hurt and thunder. Mount Seir age crumble. Fulfill prophecy and great wonder. Centralized like my tumble. I'm from HP, the park where lost boys get hunted. Possessed from the hornet, brimstone in the chokehold. Comatose, enchanting souls. Dracula's death holes, got our necks swole. The young break the cheek of the old. We rule by Romans, caucus be food for vultures. Sacrifice to the dissolar. Yisrael, now we coming, living, breathing, talking. Dead men walking, being sparked by the fire.
Welcome to the new age. I see through the eyes. Hezekiah, King Zion, war lion, shine onyx, radiate your diamonds. Yasharahla, now rising. 12 tribes, praise Yahweh supreme, sovereign power. Welcome to the new age. I see through the eyes. Hezekiah, King Zion, war lion, shine onyx, radiate your diamonds. Yasharahla, now rising. 12 tribes, praise Yahweh supreme, sovereign power. My mind penetrates time zones, attack clones, unlock truth, mystery, Sherlock Holmes. My throne's barrel above metallic domes. Eyes amber, body onyx, stronger than diamond. My short's a lion, voice melodic. Allahayam, electronic, thoughts faster than sonic. Celestial Zion, I'm lodging. Push up, y'all burn fire. Gateway as the shield. 6-point triangle, untangle anger that became mangle. A fucking bangle for physical from sinning against innocent as the chosen. My mind's open, I'm focused from being frozen to time. Kept the suffering, Egypt's bondage. My thoughts move mountains. Watch evil do its ways like x-rays. False with decays as the ancients reign. The multiverses, material terrain versus herbs became legends in the mind heavens. Consciousness transparent. Bill, Sephiroth, Torah, geometric Tetris. Examine the labyrinth using Jacob's ladder. Reach the iris, ion, catch the enlightenment. Abba Yakai, ignite, Dawada. Hamoshiach, rise. Every knee bow, sire. Resurrect, rapid fire from the Hebrew prophets. My mentors are hard, philosophic. Knowledge dropping like comets from Shemayah. The plane that gave birth to everything that became what became. Y'all power, 2025 scholar. Astral bodies against machines as we rage. Bring fame to Yah's name as we reign. Welcome to the new age. I see through the eyes. Hezekiah, King Zion, war lion, shine onyx, radiate your diamonds. Yasharahla, now rising. 12 tribes, praise Yahweh supreme, sovereign power. Welcome to the new age. I see through the eyes. Hezekiah, King Zion, war lion, shine onyx, radiate your diamonds. Yasharahla, now rising. 12 tribes, praise Yahweh supreme, sovereign power.
Mike Hebrew, Tanzania, Prince Charlandina. 2025 on deck. Know it, wise mind. North Philly, HUNTING, PERK. I mean Paul, forever. AF.
Shalom, shalom.
Okay.
That's my new single for my fourth up and coming album, Dirty Riding Scoundrels. I want to give a shout out to that found me, give a shout out to Killer Priest and Hellraiser, Wu-Tang Clan, Sons of Man, DJ Los, a producer from out of Detroit, Michigan. Everybody know famous, producer / DJ. Also my man, my homie from out of Tacoma, Washington, Lord Melchizedek. Also, we got over here Alfred Beatsmaker, the Sith Lord, also known as Wise Mad, and Chief Kantar. So all them producers been working hard on my albums. My first album came out 2021, which is mine, which is an acronym that means mental is never destroyed. Then my second album came out 2023, Journey to the Dark Side of the Moon. My newest album just came out 2024, which is called War Cloud. Now my new single is out, which you just heard, King Hezekiah, which is going to be on the new album, Dirty Rotten Scout.
Yes, okay. That's awesome. We've touched on a lot, and like I said, we could be here all night, but I want to ask you this because I'm not sure we really allowed you to elaborate too much on it. So can you kind of give us a little, condense it all in one? The Mighty Hebrew University, how did that start, and what do you have going on with that right now, in case anyone was interested in it?
Well, like I said, when I developed Hebrew cosmogenesis, Hebrew anthropogenesis, along with Hebrew Israelite sovereign nationalism, there was a man by the name, he's from Lebanon. His name is Basim. And he took a liking to me and my research and my teachings. And he was like, yo, man, you should, come up with like a university, something like that, with your teachings. So there was a brother that raised me in this culture by the name of Dr. Morey Yoel Ben Yisrael out of Philadelphia. So me and him, we came together. We put, like a blueprint of the Mighty Hebrew University together. But as I developed, and then Moriel, Dr. Moriel, he was dealing with other projects and things like that. I continued on with the university. And then Princess Rakia Itana, Benaf Yasharahla, she seen the greatness and the depthness of my teachings. You know what I mean? And at the time, she just gave birth to my son, stuff like that. And then we went to Africa. So it gave her time to put the university together. And that's what she did. She took all my teachings, everything that I did, and put it in a curriculum form that's banging, which became known as tmhu.org, or which is the Mighty Hebrew University.org. And I got a lot of students, and people was going through the courses, they syllabuses, they had a syllabus, excuse me, and different things. It was real dope. And right now, I'm in the reconstruction phase. There was things that transpired with the website itself. So now I'm in the process of reconstructing it right now. But I still teach. I have a Mighty Hebrew University back page where I have students all over the world where I do lectures, I teach, I even one-on-one teach. And now I'm on the ground. What's very important for me is being here on the ground in Africa to confirm my research, because it's all good from an academia standpoint that you can quote this scholar and that scholar. That's cool. But it's a different level now when you become the scholar that people quote. You know what I'm saying? And that's where I'm at now, where people are research. You Princess Adaf, you see a lot of, I put some of my work on Facebook to give people a bird's eye view so they can take the courses. But if you don't want to get involved in the courses, until the university is back up, you can on my Facebook page on Prince Matazarayam. That's Matazarayam. Yasharahla. I'm pretty sure y'all know how to spell Yasharahla. If not, that's Yasharahla. My email in lowercase all together, Mighty Hebrew 4, as in the number 4. Mighty Hebrew 4 at gmail.com. Again, that's Mighty Hebrew 4 at gmail.com. So absolutely, y'all more than welcome. And maybe one day I can come on here, done it on different podcasts. I can come on here and do a PowerPoint presentation on Hebrew cosmogenesis and
That'd
Hebrew
be nice.
anthropogenesis. I think I should come on and do a PowerPoint presentation. I just
Okay.
done the last place I did a PowerPoint presentation on that. It's on the Scorn Black Man podcast. First one I did was cosmogenesis. The second, anthropogenesis. I did that last month, and I got some great views. And I also did it on alchemizing energy with DJ Genesis. I got over 15,000 views just doing it on her show. So it's definitely I've done that also on the Pa Shaddai's channel, which is Sadnegga's wife. I did it on Esoteric Thoughts. May the late E.T. Esoteric Thoughts rest in completeness. He was from London, England, and he made transition. He's the one, I was connected by him or to him by Nepal Shaddai, and he in turn was connected to BBC and the UK, and a lot of scholars through him start looking deep into my research, and I got some nice reviews on that. So most definitely, I would love to come on the show and do a presentation on that topic.
One last thing before we get out of here, I kind of want you to sum up a few things, but I did want to ask you why Tanzania, because everyone is talking about going back to Israel, the country. So why Tanzania before we, and once after you answer that, can you kind of give us a little summary of what you got going on, what's coming up? You've already told us how they can get in contact with you, but you know, kind of just give us a little summary of anything else you would like us to know.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, Tanzania, that's easy. When you go to Genesis chapter 15, 13 to 18, 18 is the key verse. It talks about by the great river Egypt to the Euphrates would be the land of the promise. The great river Egypt is the Nile River. The Nile River is 4,200 miles long. And it starts in Uganda at Lake Victoria and it drops into the Mediterranean Sea. And Tanzania is a part of that. And when you looked at the Euphrates, that's all the way in Iraq. So from East Africa to Northeastern Africa, falsely called the Middle East, would be the land of the promise. It's also identifying the Garden of Eden. If you look at Genesis 15, 18, and you align it with Genesis chapter 2, them four riverheads that you're reading about is the land of the promise from the great river Egypt to the Euphrates. So I'm saying if a person wants to migrate to Kenya, Ethiopia, Tanzania, they're in the land of the promise. In the religious mind state, we're looking at the piece of real estate that we see, and we're saying that's the whole of Israel. And that's not what the Most High promised the ancestors, the descendants of Abraham. He promised us the great river Egypt to the Euphrates. So I'm already in the promised land. Me being in Tanzania, I'm in the land of the promise. You know what I'm saying? So Israel is also a part of the land of the promise. But that what we see right now is a colonial power. You know what I'm saying? Even though the central base is in fact the Mona, absolutely. But just to remind the people, that's just a part of our land. And if people don't want to go there yet because they have this disdain about who's controlling things, then there's other parts of the land of promise that we can go to. Right now, I have here my compound, my farmhouse. I'm working on the ancient Bantu Hebrew Israelite Awareness Center, which is a actual building. You know what I'm saying? Under my NGO. Um, Basically, the ancient Bantu Hebrew Israelite Awareness Center is going to be like a bridge between foundational Black Americans where other Bantu speaking Israelites in Africa and to connect them together because, you know, we've been under the mental side that when you say Africa, you automatically talking about Hamites. And that's just not true. You know what I mean? All people in Africa are not descendants of Ham. And that deception came in by a lot of these camps because these camps teach, you know, the people in Africa are Hamites. Verse saying some people in Africa are Hamites, some people in Africa are Shemites. And they're not doing that. And it's causing a disservice. So I'm over here on the ground creating, you know, a community whereas though if people want to leave from the confines of the United States and they want to come somewhere else, they can come here. They can come here. So, you know, this is why we solicit donations from time to time because it helps us. A lot of people thus far came and seen me. Give a shout out to some of the people that came to see me thus far. The semi-basketball player Brian Waters was over here. You had, the lyricist, famous Hebrew lyricist Yoav was here. You had Sister Kafira that came over here. You had, oh my gosh, there's so many people that came over here. The herbologist, y'all know him, Mikhail Ben Or. He was over here and visited. A bunch of people came over and they continuously come and they see the work and think, I want to give a shout out to Mikhail Ben Or. Not only did he come, he brought his family, his children, and they stayed almost a week at the farmhouse. And his children got to play with the goats and the chickens and different stuff like that. So I'm pretty sure y'all know Mika. He's a dope brother. You know what I mean? So shout out to him, his Isha, and his children and all that. Also, I want to give a shout out to the general. He came through. He stayed almost 2 months here. And then he stayed so long. Look, he stayed so long. His Isha came from the United States to here. We had a good time. We went to Zanzibar, myself, him, his Isha, my other Isha, Princess Sarah, my newest Isha. You know what I mean? So we all went to Zanzibar together. So it was definitely a dope situation. So we have so many people that came and visit what we got going on over here. And maybe one day y'all get some time, y'all get y'all passports, y'all come, y'all visit, y'all see what's going on over here. But remember, just like Joshua and them had to spy out the land, that's what we doing. And that's not get twisted. We not on this um mythical lies in Africa. Africa has its pros and cons. Africa has its problems. You know what I'm saying? So we not going to be like, oh, this is this. We have to build. We have to build relations because most times it's all about a bag over here. And my whole argument and the emotions that I put in with the Tanzanian government is like, if y'all want FBA to come back, and if the land was stripped from us, why do we have to come in with the bag and pay for something that was stripped from us? Shouldn't there be some form of real estate that is given into the children of slaves? First, we just got to constantly bring in the bag.
You know
That's
what?
what.
I have a question.
Yes,
Salakia,
man.
before you get off that topic. I heard that Ghana was giving away land and housing. Is that true?
No,
Okay.
no. Ain't nothing. Listen to me, sister. I'ma keep it real with you. Ain't nothing free over here. Anybody telling you that lie is a liar. Ain't nothing for free. You my brother, you my sister. As long as you got this, you ain't got that, you ain't got that. And that's just facts. You know what I mean? There's a lot of scamming going on. And you sisters got to be careful because some of y'all sisters got murdered over here. Y'all know the stories. Some
Yeah, I
sisters
heard.
that to like Zambia, Gambia, and Ghana, and them different, and one of the sisters was married a younger man, and he killed him and his friend, and threw the lady in the well, and took $1,000 USD in her car, and they wound up getting caught. And so far from what I heard, it's been between 7 to 8 sisters that got murdered. 5 FBA, 2 from the UK. So we have to be careful. You sisters have to be careful going into these foreign lands, turning your back on your FBA brothers, thinking that you're going to come to Africa and find your savior. These brothers is worse. than the FBI, brother. I'm telling you, why you think a lot of sisters over there, a lot of the Bantu speaking Israelite sisters, they trying to get an FBA man. They don't want no. If that's the case, then why you think the sisters over there in Africa that's Israelite, they trying to marry an Israelite man from the United States? They ain't trying to marry none of these brothers over here. I'm telling you, I am on the ground. To the sisters that's over here, it's a trophy to have a foreign man, but it's a trophy of conquest to have a foundational Black American man. Most discussions over here in Tanzania with the women over here, they want a Black American man. That's what they want. That's the thing. I don't
You
know
know
if it's
what my feelings is on that, on us transitioning to move abroad into Africa. I feel like before we all go running over there, we should have our own military before we settle over there in those foreign lands. That's the only way
I,
I feel like we'll be safe, because it seems like we're hated everywhere we go. It doesn't even matter where we go, we're hated.
that's a fact. That's a fact that we definitely hate it. Um, I can say this: the UNY, the United Nations of Israel, they had a section within their structure, a military structure that takes a certain type of mind state. And the first thing we have to do is these type of forums, and also private forums and think tank discussions.
Yeah.
And then if that we following Yahweh's laws, then we
Hmm.
have to have somewhat of a set hedron of court. When you look
Yeah.
at the so-called, I'm not going to get your channel struck. So I'm gonna use the word small hat. So when you see these small hats, right? Notice they got set hedron. They have a court. When you looked at the Japanese, excuse me, the Chinese, Chinatown. You know why they got Chinatown and they control? Because they have their own court. That's why when you do something wrong and you in them nigga communities and they got triads and they got courts that judge you. We
Hmm.
don't need people to Torah without a court.
Hmm.
You can't. You have to have a court with this constitutional document. This
Right.
is why a woman or a man can commit adultery, and guess what happens? Nothing. They can just jump to another camp. But when you got a court and everybody acknowledges it, don't matter if you Torah only, Messianic, it don't matter. There has to be certain nationalistic lines that we all agree as a nation. So let's say if I violate you, sister, no matter where I go, and it don't have to be a sexual way, just violate in general. If I was out of line or something to the point where there's a court hearing, then every camp, every community must acknowledge that. So I don't jump from camp to camp to camp to community and keep ruining these sins. If you are a male whore, woman whore, then you can't go to no other camp and manifest that behavior. If you a thief, if you a drug dealer, if you a murderer, and I don't mean your past before you knew you was Israel. I'm talking about in the present moment, you know exactly who you are, and you go on that camp and you disrupting people's families, structures, men, women, because the men, we get a bad hand, but you do got some deceiving women too. So I'm trying to make a balance. You got some women, they just want the bag. You got
Hmm.
some men that are women that's single mothers. They may have a good job, and all they do is play PlayStation all day and beat on that woman and take everything from out of that woman. I know some
Dusty
Hebrew,
Dusty.
yeah, I
We
know
call
some
him
Hebrew camp.
Dusty Dusty.
Yeah, I ain't gonna put their names out, but a sister work. and then she give the man a whole check. You know what I'm saying? And just different things that go on that it has to stop. And it stops with a court. And in that court, we can create officers. Remember Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 13. So if a woman is beating on, yeah, sisters, you got some sisters, y'all be beating on men too. And guess what? Knock on your door. A group of sisters to handle you. Men, you beating on the women, a group of brothers come and give you 39-1. That's what we need in our community, to put the fear of Yah in the midst of the people again. There's no fear because there's no repercussion. There's no repercussion. You sleep with another man's wife, they're supposed to be brother. We ain't gonna kill you, but we gonna hurt you because you out of line. But because we're being protected in our evil by a government who's against Yah's commandments, as long as our people in the United States, they can be Israel when it's convenient for them, and when they violate by abusing a woman or abusing their children or abusing their brother or their sister, there's no repercussion. And that's the problem. When that man gathered sticks and he was put to death, people say, oh, that was harsh, not understanding that there was a standard that was being developed to put the fear in the hearts of the people so they won't do the things that they do. But there's no fear. So people can steal from you, rob from you, lie to you, cheat you, all that. And the only thing a person say, don't mess with that guy no more. Don't mess with that sister no more. But nobody went to them people and confronted them about the evil that they've done. So it's just a continuous cycle. That's why those of like minds, we have to now come together and stand on truth, 10 toes down, and separate us and deal with what we're dealing with. And that's why, sister, when me and you had our little discussion, we had that discussion. And I understood that discussion. You know what I'm saying? We ain't got to get into all that. But we had that discussion. And that and the taste is coming out because of evil men. And sometimes evil men can overshadow the good men to the point where a sister don't even want to hear, even if you telling the truth. It's so much corruption that they don't want to hear nothing. But I'm glad I was able to come on this show, and I will definitely keep coming back. If y'all need me to come back, and hopefully, sister, you know, I'm telling you, was a good man waiting for you, sister. I'm only saying that because I be seeing your Facebook pages and the love and stuff like that. I'm telling you, he coming. But I'm gonna tell you this, sister, don't let him pass you because you might not agree with certain things. He might be the one for you.
I agree. I agree. And one more last question for you before we wrap this up.
Yes, sister.
You say we're gods on the earth, correct?
Well, the correct word I would like to use
Yeah.
is Elohim.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
Elohim
Yes.
is on the earth. Come.
Yes.
That means we're going to have to help ourselves. But I feel, in my opinion, I feel like that collectively as a people, we're relying too much on what somebody else is going to do for us. We as a people, we have to get in a mindset of conditioning ourselves to get out of codependency mentality and woe is me and help me. We need leaders like yourself from our community, and you all, our men, need to come together and organize us. And until somebody initiate that, it looks like we're going to stay at the bottom and we're prolonging our captivity here. So how do you see that?
I mean, you summing up the whole discussion of tonight, because remember earlier I just said we got to get out of that religious mind state. And that religious mind causes you to be constantly dependent on something outside of yourself. This is what you leave them with, and I'm gonna leave y'all with this. Then we bring ourselves in captivity and measurement. Remember, the Most High said, "This, don't do that. If you do this, this will happen. If you do that, that will happen." But in measurement, we lost our captivity. Excuse me, we lost our identity because of disobedience, and we went into captivity. So now, in measurement, for us to get out of captivity, we have to do things that come from out of captivity. The problem is, we can agree, if you ask any Israelite, it don't matter. Who brought us in captivity? Was it because we stopped disobeying the laws of the Creator, or the Creator just brought us in captivity? And 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, we brought ourselves in captivity. We disobeyed the law. Okay, well, if that's if we brought ourselves in captivity, then why are we waiting on somebody to bring us from our captivity? If we the ones in captivity, shouldn't we be the ones to bring ourselves from
We got to
out of
put
captivity?
ourselves out.
So
So if we need somebody, we need a alpha spirit to initiate the heads to come together and to get the rest of us together to pull us up out of from the bottom.
yes, ma'am.
And see, I'm running a movement on my social media page right now, and it's called "We're Done Talking" in 2025.
Okay.
So be on the lookout. So you all are going to be seeing some of my posts with that slogan.
You definitely from down. You definitely from the Midwest. I can hear that.
Come on. Yeah, and I see nobody in the chat has a question. I had asked the people that are watching the live if they have a question for you, but so far I don't see any questions. So you have anything else to say, sister? Sister Ada?
I think we may have touched just about on everything. Like I said, we could have been here all night if we just, getting deep, but I think we did touch on pretty good points. So yeah, we're good.
Okay, all praises to the Most High. And I want to
part one. Good for
He
part
said
one.
part one.
part one.
Oh, you know what though?
I'm gonna one day come on y'all. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna come on y'all roundtable discussion one day. But I watched
Stop running. Stop running.
This is gonna kill me over there, man. I don't know. When I watched that joint a few times, I was like, y'all had one sister on there.
Yeah, she's a powerhouse. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. She's a powerhouse. Yeah, you should come in on our show next week, which is next Sunday, January the 19th. Am I correct, Sister Ada?
Yes.
Polygyny versus monogamy. You don't want to miss that. We would love to have you on there if you can make that.
Because we're gonna try to break down, is it y'all's will versus man's desire?
Yeah. Yeah. And so I guess that's all. All hearts, minds are clear.
Yes.
All right, well, we want to thank all our family out there in the live. Thank you for your time and tuning in with us. And
about with one more song. Can y'all leave us with one more song of mine?
Yeah, I'll play it as we go out.
Oh yeah, that'd be perfect.
What song did you want me to play so I can get it ready?
Number 10, Gross Darkness, on my new album War Cloud, on my playlist. I inboxed it to you too.
Okay.
That's the last song. The closing
Okay,
out.
so, well, we're going to conclude this podcast interview with our brother Prince Matazaryam on the Royal Meetup Talk Panel podcast with Princess Ada Tekaya, as well as myself, Rafa'ala Yasharahla. We thank you again, Prince Matazaryam, as well for allowing us to interview you. It was an honor. And we enjoy listening to your story and your music and your journey into the truth up until now. We want to ask everybody out there to definitely tune into our next week's podcast, January the 19th, 2025, about what is it? It's about our conversations on polygyny versus monogamy podcast. We're going to have special guests on there, so you all do not want to miss that. And definitely please follow us on social media on the Facebook platform called the Royal Meetup Talk Panel. Click like, and also we have the Royal Meetup YouTube channel as well, where we have our past podcasts from 2024. Not all of them, but we have many of those our shows on there as well. So definitely go on there and click that too. And please also follow our dear co-host Princess Ada on her social media platform on Facebook. Her Facebook presence name is Princess Ada Tekaya. Her YouTube channel is Princess Ada Tekaya as well. Her Instagram is Princess Ada 1. Her TikTok is Princess Ada 16. Our media, she also has a media creation digital arts production company called I think it's called, what is it called, Princess? Humbly Ada Media Productions. Am I correct?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, so definitely keep that in mind. And also myself, you can follow me on social media, on Facebook, Rafa'ala Yasharahla author, TikTok, Yasharahla, Rafa'ala Yasharahla, also Truth Over Traditions. And also you can please visit my website, www.truthovertraditions.com, where I sell all natural products and cultural attire. And I think I'm on Instagram as well. As I Am Rafa'ala, and my YouTube channel, I Am Rafa'ala. And we will conclude there.
Okay, I'm about to play this song.
All right.
It's long.
Yeah, time to take you to the oscillated world of existence and pure will. Grows darkness, take the minds of people over. Vultures hunt for the blood of young soldiers. Time of the end of this world is right now. See truth in Zion, break chains of bondage, destroy the blindness. As a sun, now you're rising now. Grows darkness, take the minds of people over. Vultures hunt for the blood of young soldiers. Time of the end of this world is right now. Seek truth in Zion, break chains of bondage, destroy the blindness. As a sun, now you're shining now. There's a dark eclipse forming to a Voltron. Demon and misty darkness, absorbing screams of families bleeding. Entities are natural enemies of energies.